Sri Lanka looks small on the map, a teardrop in the Indian Ocean, easy to miss beside the size of India. But once you enter it, the island does not feel small at all. Here, a single journey can move from tropical coast to misty highlands, from jungle heat to cool tea country, from Buddhist shrines cut into stone to ruined kingdoms hidden behind trees, from leopards in dry forest to whales beyond the southern shore. This is not just an island of beaches, it is an island of layers. Stone rises out of the jungle at Sigiriya, like a memory too large to bury. In Dambulla, faith disappears into caves and comes back covered in color and silence. Kandy holds the spiritual weight of the island close to its heart. In the high country, the air changes. Tea fields spread over the slopes. Trains move slowly through cloud and green light. Then the land drops again back toward heat dust wildlife and the restless edge of the sea. That is what makes Sri Lanka so different. It is not only beautiful, it is compressed. History, religion, wilderness, colonial memory, railway lines, rainforests and ocean horizons, all pushed tightly into one small piece of land. Nothing feels far apart, nothing feels simple. The island changes quickly, but it never feels broken. Each part seems to answer another. Colombo opens the entry to the modern world. Galle turns the coastline into memory. Yala reminds you that nature still writes its own rules here. Mirissa opens into light waves and the vast breathing space of the Indian Ocean. And between all of them, Sri Lanka keeps shifting shape. From sacred to wild, from ancient to living, from quiet to overwhelming. This is the story of an island that carries far more than its size suggests. An island built from stone, faith, forest, and sea. An island where kingdoms rose, empires passed. Trains climbed into cloud, and the jungle kept growing around it all. Sri Lanka is not just a destination. It is a whole world gathered into one island. Colombo is where Sri Lanka meets the world in the present tense. The sea is always close. Cargo ships wait offshore. Port cranes rise behind the city like metal landmarks. Traffic pushes through long coastal roads. Temples, office towers, colonial facades, apartment blocks, markets, and glass-fronted hotels all stand inside the same restless frame. Nothing about Colombo feels frozen. It moves too much for that. This is the first truth of the city. Colombo is not the ancient face of Sri Lanka. It is the open face, the trading face, the one turned outward toward routes, ships, money arrivals, and departures. Long before a traveler begins climbing toward tea country or walking through ruined kingdoms, the island introduces itself here through motion, through commerce, through the sound of a port city that has never fully stopped negotiating with the wider world. That makes Colombo important far beyond its skyline. It tells you that Sri Lanka was never only inward-looking, never only sacred, never only rural or hidden in the jungle. This island has always been connected to currents larger than itself. Trade crossed these waters. Empires came by sea. Goods, religions, languages, and ambitions all passed through coasts like this one. Colombo carries that memory in a modern form, not as ruins, but as function. Walk through the city, and the layers stay visible. A colonial building still stands near a new tower. A temple sits not far from a busy junction. Street vendors, office workers, tuk-tuks, luxury hotels, and old neighborhoods all share the same heat, the same humidity, the same nearness to the ocean. Colombo does not organize itself into one clean image. It spills across eras. That messiness is part of its honesty. The light here feels different from the highlands and different from the old stone cities inland. It is coastal light, brighter, harsher, reflective. The air carries salt. Even the modern buildings seem softened slightly by heat and sea wind. At sunset, the city begins to glow from the edge outward, the horizon opening behind it, reminding you that Colombo is not just a capital space, it is a threshold. And that is exactly what it should be in this story. Colombo is the doorway, the place where Sri Lanka first appears as a living country, not yet as a legend. It gives you movement before memory, commerce before kings, the sea before the stone. It reminds you that this island does not belong only to the past. It is still in motion now. But once Colombo opens the door, the island begins to pull inward, away from the port, away from the towers, away from the coastline of trade and modern speed. The road turns toward the interior, and out of the green rises one of the most extraordinary silhouettes in South Asia. We go to Sigiriya. Sigiriya does not emerge gradually. It rises all at once, a massive rock lifting out of the green plain, too steep to feel natural, too singular to ignore, too low. From a distance, it looks almost impossible, like a monument the earth made first, and people only later claimed for themselves. That is what gives Sigiriya its force. Before you know the history, before you see the ruins, before you climb a single stair, the place already feels like power. This is one of the rare landscapes where geography and ambition seem to collide in full view. The rock is real, raw, volcanic, and feeling ancient beyond memory. But on top of it, around it, along its sides, people once built walls, terraces, pools, passageways, and a royal refuge suspended above the forest. Sigiriya is not just a beautiful sight. It is an argument made in stone. A statement that height can become control, that isolation can become defense, that nature itself can be turned into a throne. The climb deepens that feeling. Steps cut into the rock. Iron stairways cling to the cliff. The ground drops away. Wind moves harder as the view opens. Below, the jungle stretches outward in every direction, broken only by water gardens, straight lines, and the faint geometry of a vanished royal world. Sigiriya keeps shifting as you move upward. From below, it is a mountain. Halfway up, it becomes a fortress. Near the top, it begins to feel like a stage right above the island. And that is the deeper truth of Sigiriya. This was never only a place to live. It was a place to be seen from, to rule from, to separate oneself from the ordinary world below. The higher you go, the more that intention becomes visible. Space narrows, exposure increases. The forest becomes distance. The sky takes over. Power here was not horizontal, it was vertical. Yet even that does not fully explain the atmosphere, because Sigiriya is also full of absence. Much of what once stood here is gone. Walls have broken, chambers have emptied. The great palace has been reduced to foundations, platforms, fragments. But the site does not lose power because of that. It gains another kind. The missing pieces force the rock itself to speak louder. Wind across the summit, heat on the stone, the silence between ruins. Sigiriya becomes more than architecture. It becomes memory anchored to land. That is why it matters so much in the story of Sri Lanka. This island does not keep its history buried neatly in museums. It leaves it in landscapes, in temples and jungles and broken capitals, in caves and coastal forts. And here on a rock too large to disappear, Sigiriya shows how the island remembers, not softly, not abstractly, physically. It also introduces one of Sri Lanka's deepest patterns, the closeness between civilization and wilderness. Even at a site built for royal power, the jungle is never far away. Trees press near the base, birds cross the sky. Heat is from the plain. The whole place feels reclaimed and unreclaimed at the same time. Human ambition reached upward here, but the island never fully gave itself over to it. Nature remained in the frame. That balance gives Sigiriya its strange energy. It is at once engineered and primal royal, and ruined strategic and theatrical. Few places make power feel so exposed. Fewer still make it feel so temporary. The rock endures. The kingdom does not. What remains is the image stone above forest human design, against ancient geology memory standing where certainty once stood. And from Sigiriya, the story moves not higher, but deeper, away from the exposed summit, and into shadow, into painted walls, into chambers of devotion cut into stone itself. We go to Dambulla. Dambulla turns the island inward. After Sigiriya, where power rose into the sky, this place moves into rock shadow and silence. The entrance climbs through heat and light, but inside the caves, the atmosphere changes immediately. The air cools, sound softens. The stone ceiling drops low in places, then opens wider. Rows of Buddha images begin to appear. Gold, red ochre, black. Painted walls, painted ceilings, painted stories. Faith does not stand here in the open. It settles into the mountain. That is what makes Dambulla so powerful. It does not overwhelm through scale alone. It overwhelms through accumulation. Statue after statue, chamber after chamber, surface after surface covered in color and devotion. The deeper you go, the more the cave stops feeling like shelter and starts feeling like a world. A sacred interior carved not by one moment, but by centuries of use, belief, repair, and return. If Sigiriya was ambition made visible, Dambulla is continuity made visible. This is not the language of kings trying to rise above the island. It is the language of belief trying to remain within it. Stone in Sri Lanka is never just material. At Sigiriya, it becomes authority. Here, it becomes memory and worship. The island keeps finding ways to write itself into rock. The feeling inside the caves is unlike the open grandeur of ruins or the wind-struck height of a fortress. Everything is closer. The images sit near the viewer. The ceiling seems alive with pattern. Light falls unevenly across painted faces and folded hands. Some figures glow. Others recede into dimness. That shifting visibility matters. Dambulla is not meant to be consumed in one glance. It reveals itself in fragments and details, in the slow adjustment of the eye. And that slowness changes the meaning of the place. Outside Sri Lanka can feel bright, humid, restless, and full of movement. Inside Dambulla, time thickens. The caves hold stillness differently. Not empty stillness, inhabited stillness. A stillness built from a petition prayer ritual image and the long habit of returning to the same sacred spaces across generations. The island feels older here, but also more continuous. This is why Dambulla matters so much in the story. Sri Lanka is not only a land of dramatic landscapes and fallen kingdoms. It is also a land where faith has shaped space just as deeply as power has. In Dambulla, religion is not a separate chapter from geography. It enters geography. It takes shelter in it. It turns a cave into a sanctuary and a mountain into an archive of devotion. There is also something deeply revealing in the contrast between Dambulla and Sigiriya. One rises alone, above the forest, exposed, commanding, defensive. The other disappears into stone, protected and closed inward. One speaks in the language of height. The other speaks in the language of depth. Together they show two instincts that run through Sri Lanka again and again. The desire to claim the land and the desire to sanctify it. Even the path out of the caves carries that feeling with it. Brightness returns slowly. Heat comes back. Trees and rock reappear in ordinary scale, but the silence of the interior lingers. Dambulla leaves behind a different kind of memory than Sigiriya. Less dramatic at first glance, more persistent once it settles in the mind. And from these caves of devotion, the story moves toward the city where belief leaves the mountain and enters the life of a whole kingdom. We go to Kandy. Kandy carries weight differently. Colombo moves. Sigiriya rises. Dambulla withdraws into stone. Kandy gathers. It gathers memory ritual, kingship faith, and landscape into one enclosed basin of hills. The city sits around its lake with a kind of contained gravity, as if the land itself were holding something important in place. Roads curve through the folds of the terrain. Trees thicken on the slopes. Roof lines appear and disappear behind mist and foliage. Nothing here feels accidental. Kandy does not spread outward. It holds inward. That inwardness is part of its power. This is not only a beautiful city in the highlands. It is a city that carries the spiritual center of the island with unusual force. In Kandy, belief is no longer hidden in caves or lifted onto a rock above the jungle. It becomes civic, processional, public. It moves through the streets, settles by the water, and shapes the identity of the city itself. Faith here is not tucked away from daily life. It gives daily life its rhythm. The lake at the center helps explain that feeling. It slows the city down without making it still. Water catches the changing light. Buildings gather at its edge. Hills rise beyond. The whole setting feels layered, but contained almost like a natural amphitheater for history. Kandy is one of those places where landscape does not sit behind the city as background. It presses into it from every side. The hills protect and close, and deepen the sense that this is a place set apart. That sense of being set apart matters in the story of Sri Lanka. Kandy is where the island's political and spiritual imagination stayed concentrated long enough to form something durable. not a ruin standing alone, not a relic disconnected from ordinary life. A living center, a place where the past still shapes how the city is seen, felt, and remembered. Even when traffic moves, even when shops open, even when the modern world presses in, Kandy keeps a ceremonial core, and that core gives the city a particular emotional texture. It does not feel as exposed as Colombo. It does not feel as theatrical as Sigiriya. It does not feel as enclosed as Dambulla. It feels held. The streets can be busy, but the city's deeper identity remains calm, almost guarded. That is why Kandy lingers in the mind. It is not only what you see, it is the pressure underneath what you see. The feeling that this city has been carrying something sacred for a very long time. There is also a softness here that changes the film's rhythm. The lake, the hills, the the slightly cooler air, the drifting mist. All of it creates a gentler surface than the dry plains and stone monuments of the cultural triangle. Yet beneath that softness is immense symbolic weight. Kandy shows one of Sri Lanka's deepest patterns. Places of beauty are often also places of memory, and places of memory are often places of belief. Nothing stands in isolation. Landscape devotion and identity keep folding into one another. That is why Kandy belongs at the center of the island's story. It reveals Sri Lanka not as a collection of impressive sights, but as a civilization that kept binding land and faith together. Here, the island's spiritual life is not abstract. It has a setting, a shoreline, a hill line, a city line. It becomes visible in the space itself. And yet Kandy is not the end of the highland story. From here, the island rises further. The air cools more. Tea begins to shape the slopes. Colonial memory enters the landscape. The tropical island changes color and temperature, almost becoming another country for a while. We go to Nuwara Eliya. Nuwara Eliya feels like a change in altitude and memory at the same time. The heat falls away. Mist hangs lower over the hills. The roads bend through tea country instead of dry plains. Lawns appear. Old houses with steep roofs sit behind hedges and tall trees. The air is thinner, cooler, more measured. After Kandy, the island does not just rise, it changes tone. That shift matters. Sri Lanka has already shown stone faith jungle and ceremony. Nuwara Eliya adds another layer entirely, the highland world shaped by tea and colonial ambition. Here, the land was not only inhabited, it was organized into estates, slopes, rail lines, gardens, bungalows, and systems of cultivation that altered both the economy and the visual identity of the island. The result is one of the most distinctive landscapes in Sri Lanka. Not ancient, in the same way as Kandy or Dambulla, but no less important. Tea defines the view. Hills roll outward in long green patterns, trimmed into order by human labor. Workers move through the rows. Narrow roads cut across ridges. Mist slides over the slopes and then lifts again. This is beauty built through repetition. Not one monument, not one sacred site. A whole working landscape shaped over time until the island itself begins to look cultivated at the scale of mountains. That is the deeper truth of Nuwara Eliya. It is not only a pretty highland town, it is a record of transformation, A tropical island rises into cool elevation, and in that cooler climate, another layer of history takes root. Architecture changes, agriculture changes, rhythm changes, even the light changes. Morning feels paler, evenings close in faster. Rain and cloud become part of the atmosphere rather than interruptions to it. There is also a certain distance here from the rest of Sri Lanka's emotional palette. The coast opens outward. The ancient cities look back into deep time. The jungle presses close, but Nuwara Eliya feels composed, almost held at arm's length. That distance is part of its character. It carries the memory of an imported world, adapted to local ground. Colonial habits, estate logic, and hill country labor all remain written into the landscape. And yet the island is still unmistakably present. The slopes are too lush, the weather too alive, the valleys too green to mistake this for anywhere else. Sri Lanka absorbs the foreign layer and turns it into its own version of the highlands. That is why Nuwara Eliya matters so much in the documentary. It shows that the island's identity was not shaped by ancient kingdoms alone. It was also shaped by later systems of trade labor empire and plantation economy. The town itself reflects that complexity. Gardens, racecourse, old buildings, tea factories, roadside stalls, fog rolling through eucalyptus and pine. All of it produces a place that feels both local and displaced, both tropical and strangely distant from the tropics below. The island does not lose itself here. It reveals how many versions of itself it can hold. This also changes the way the viewer understands scale. In the lowlands, Sri Lanka often feels dense, immediate, close. In Nuwara Eliya, the hills open the frame. The island breathes differently. Space stretches across terraces and valleys. The pace slows. The eye travels farther. It becomes a country of contour and weather. And from here, the story keeps moving through the high country. But the mood softens again. The estate landscapes begin to give way to something more cinematic, more intimate, more closely tied to motion through the hills. Tracks curve through a cloud and green. Bridges cross forested valleys. The island turns almost dreamlike. We go to Yala. Yala feels like the highlands loosen their grip and begin to breathe. Nuwara Eliya is cool, cultivated, and held in the shape of estates. Yala is softer than that, greener, more open to the eye, more cinematic in the way the land unfolds. Valleys fall away beneath the roads. Ridges rise in layers. Cloud drifts low across the slopes. Light moves through the trees and then disappears again into mist. The whole place seems built for slow movement. That is why Yala stays in the memory. It does not strike like Sigiriya. It does not weigh on the spirit like Kandy. It lingers, through air distance and rhythm. This is a Sri Lanka of curves rather than edges of hills, rather than stone of horizon, rather than enclosure. The landscape does not confront the viewer. It draws the viewer forward. And that movement is part of the place itself. The railway lines matter here. The bridges matter. The old train crossing through green valleys has become one of the island's most recognizable images. Because it translates the geography into motion. Steel and stone do not dominate the hills. They pass through them. A train emerging from cloud and forest, crossing a high bridge at a measured pace. says something essential about Yala. This is not the island imposing itself on the land. It is the island learning how to move through it gracefully. That makes Yala a different kind of chapter in the story of Sri Lanka. It is not primarily about kingship or religion or colonial systems, though traces of all those histories remain in the hills. It is about atmosphere, about the island turning from monument into landscape and still holding the same emotional force. The valleys, the tea fields, the cuttings in the hillside. The sudden views through moving cloud, all of it creates a feeling of transition. The land is carrying you somewhere, even when you stand still. There is also a gentleness to Yala that changes the film again. Sri Lanka has already shown dry heat, sacred interior darkness, and the formal gravity of old cities. Here the island becomes almost lyrical, not soft in a weak sense, but soft in the way mist softens, distance, the way rain softens color, the way mountain air slows the body. Even the soundscape changes. Wind through leaves, distant water, train wheels far off. The place seems to ask less of the viewer and give more space in return. That space is important because it reveals another strength of the island. Sri Lanka is small, but it is never one note. Even within the high country, the mood can shift dramatically from the clipped order of tea estates to this more fluid, dreamlike terrain. Yala proves that the island's scale is misleading. Its variety is compressed, not limited. And yet, for all its beauty, Yala is never empty of history. The rail line itself carries memory. The bridges and tunnels belong to older systems of labor empire and infrastructure. Tea still marks the slopes. Villages still cling to the hills. The past remains present, but here it does not dominate. It flows into the view, becoming part of the atmosphere rather than its entire meaning. That is why Yala works so well at this point in the documentary. It lets the island exhale before the next shift. After Stone Temple, Sacred City, and Highland Order, the film enters a place where Sri Lanka becomes almost pure movement through landscape. The result is one of the island's most visually seductive chapters, but also one of its most revealing. Beauty here is not a monument, it is a passage. And from that passage, the story must turn again. Downward, out of mist and rail lines. Back toward heat dust, thorn scrub, and the part of the island where human history steps back and animal life takes the foreground. We go to Yala. Yala brings Sri Lanka back to instinct. After the cool air and drifting mist of Yala, the island drops into heat dust scrub and raw sunlight. The land opens wide, but it does not feel empty. It feels watchful. Dry grass moves in the wind. Trees stand twisted and spaced apart. Waterholes gather life around their edges. Tracks cut through red earth, and somewhere beyond the road, something is already moving before you see it. This is one of the wildest faces of Sri Lanka. Not wild in the sense of endless, untouched wilderness, but wild in the sense that animals still shape the rhythm of the place. In Yala, the island stops telling its story through ruins, temples, or tea slopes. It tells it through movement, through a herd of elephants crossing slowly through the brush, through monkeys jumping between branches and watching the road from above, through the sudden stillness that falls when a leopard is near. That is what makes Yala so powerful. It shifts the center of the frame away from people. The island becomes older here, more instinctive, more alert. You feel it in the landscape itself. Thorny scrub, dry forest, open glades, muddy edges of water where animals come to drink. Nothing is ornamental. Everything is functional. Survival shapes the beauty. The elephants give the park its weight. When they emerge from the trees, the whole landscape seems to slow down around them. Dust rises under their feet. Ears move gently in the heat. Calves stay close to the herd. They do not need to perform power. They carry it naturally. In Yala, elephants are not symbols carved in stone or painted in temples. They are living mass moving through a land that still belongs partly to them. Then there is the leopard. Harder to see, harder to predict. More like a rumor in the landscape until it suddenly becomes real. A shape on a rock, a body stretched across a branch. Eyes fixed somewhere beyond the vehicle. Yala is one of the few places in the world where the leopard has become almost part of the park's identity. And that matters to the tone of the film. The leopard brings tension. It sharpens every frame. Even when unseen, it changes the atmosphere. And the monkeys add another rhythm entirely. Quick, restless, noisy, curious. They break the silence in flashes. They turn branches into pathways and clearings into stages. If the elephant gives Yala gravity and the leopard gives it tension, the monkeys give it motion. Together, they make the park feel complete. Heavy, hidden, restless. Three different energies moving through the same landscape. This is why Yala matters in the story of Sri Lanka. The island is often remembered for sacred places, ancient kingdoms, tea hills, and coastlines. But Yala reminds us that Sri Lanka is also an ecological world. A place where animal life still shapes imagination. A place where the jungle and the dry zone are not just backdrops, but living systems. The country's identity does not stop with human history. It extends into habitat instinct and the fragile balance between protection and pressure. The light here changes everything. Morning gives the park a softer edge. Dust hangs in low gold. Birds cut across pale sky. Elephants seem almost sculptural in the early sun. By midday, the heat hardens the view. Shadows shorten. The land becomes bright and exposed. Then evening pulls the color back down again. Long shadows stretch. The air cools slightly, and the park begins to feel uncertain in a different way, as if the animals are about to reclaim the road the moment the people leave. Yala also changes the emotional pace of the documentary. Ella was lyrical. Kandy was spiritual. Sigiriya was monumental. Yala is alert. It pulls the viewer into a world where attention matters. Where a bent branch, a footprint in mud, or a sudden silence can mean more than a grand landmark ever could. This is Sri Lanka stripped down to heat, movement, and life. And from Yala, the journey turns once more, out of the dry forest, away from dust and animal tracks, back toward the sea where walls face the Indian Ocean and history arrives. Not through jungle paths, but through ships, trade, and empire. We go to Galle Fort. Galle Fort turns Sri Lanka back toward the sea. After the heat and instinct of Yala, the coastline returns with walls, stone, wind, and memory. The ocean is no longer just horizon. It presses directly against the edge of history. Waves strike the fortifications. Salt sits on the old surfaces. The light feels wider here, harder, more exposed. Everything faces outward. That outwardness is the key to Galle. This is not a city turned inward to shrine, palace, or jungle. It is a place built to watch the water control arrival and survive the long traffic of empire. The fort stands where routes crossed, where ships approached, where trade and power came ashore. You feel that immediately in the shape of the place. Walls, bastions, gates. Streets laid inside defense. A town organized not only for living, but for holding position at the edge of the ocean. And yet, Galle Fort does not feel like a dead military relic. It feels inhabited by time. The sea wind moves through narrow streets. Old houses stand behind thick walls. Church facades, courtyards, verandas, stone lanes, and shuttered windows carry layers of Portuguese, Dutch, British, and Sri Lankan memory all at once. The place was shaped by empire, but it was not frozen by empire. The island absorbed those layers and kept living inside them. That is what makes Galle so strong in the story of Sri Lanka. It shows the island not only as a world of sacred interiors and inland kingdoms, but as a place tied to the Indian Ocean, to commerce, to colonial ambition, to movement across water. Sri Lanka has always been more than its interior landscapes. Galle reminds us that the island was also seen from the sea. Approached from the sea, fought over from the sea. The fort's visual power comes from that meeting point. Stone and surf, order and weather, geometry and tide. Walk along the ramparts, and the whole place seems balanced between endurance and exposure. The walls still stand, but the sea never stops speaking to them. That gives Galle a different emotional tone from Sigiriya or Kandy. Less sacred, less monumental. More atmospheric, more weathered. A place where history feels worn smooth by salt and light, rather than buried in jungle or lifted onto a rock. Inside the fort, the scale becomes human again. Streets narrow. Cafes and homes sit inside old structures meant for another era. Shadows fall sharply in the afternoon. The town softens the severity of the walls without erasing them. That balance matters. Galle is both fortress and neighborhood, both coastal defense and lived space. It proves once again how Sri Lanka keeps folding beauty and history into daily life, instead of separating them cleanly. There is also a particular kind of light here that changes everything. Morning makes the fort feel clear and open. Midday bleaches the stone and sharpens every edge. Evening gives the walls a warmer tone, and the ocean beyond them turns restless and reflective at once. By sunset, the place can look almost suspended between worlds. Neither fully European nor fully South Asian, neither fully past nor fully present. That ambiguity is part of its power. Galle belongs near the end of the journey because it widens the island again. After highlands, temples, rock fortresses, and safari ground, the film returns to the coast and remembers that Sri Lanka has always been part of a larger maritime world. This island did not only grow through what happened on its soil, it was also shaped by what arrived at its shores. And from these walls above the Indian Ocean, the story softens one last time. The fort gives us sea as memory. The next place gives us sea as breath, light, and release. We go to Mirissa. Mirissa feels like the island opening its hand. After the walls of Galle and the inward weight of so much history, the coastline loosens. The sea stretches wider. The light grows softer at the edges and brighter on the water. Palm trees lean toward the shore. Fishing boats rest in the shallows. Waves fold onto the sand with a rhythm that feels less defensive, less burdened, more like release. If Galle looked out at the ocean through stone and memory, Mirissa looks out with nothing held back. That shift matters. By the time the journey reaches Mirissa, Sri Lanka has already shown rock fortresses, cave temples, sacred cities, tea highlands, mountain railways, dry forests, elephants, leopards, and colonial walls. Mirissa does something different. It does not add weight. It lets the island breathe. Here, the sea is no longer a route for empire or a line of defense. It becomes space horizon weather and light. It becomes the part of Sri Lanka that opens outward without tension. And yet, Mirissa is not empty beauty. It still belongs fully to the island's story. Fishing boats remind you that this coast is worked, not just admired. The ocean carries livelihoods as well as color. Offshore, the water deepens into one of the places where whales and dolphins enter the imagination of Sri Lanka. And that changes the scale again. Suddenly, the island is no longer only rock, forest, and hill. It is also marine world migration route open depth. Mirissa widens the documentary beyond land. The atmosphere here works differently from everywhere else in the film. Sigiriya rose upward. Dambulla moved inward. Kandy gathered spiritual weight. Yala drifted through mist. Yala sharpened the senses. Mirissa softens them. The eye follows curves instead of edges, sand instead of stone, tide instead of wall, sky instead of ceiling. The place feels lighter, but not less meaningful. Sometimes the final truth of an island is not found in its monuments, but in the way it meets the sea. That is what Mirissa reveals. Sri Lanka is not only a land of memory and devotion, it is also a land of warmth, salt motion, and horizon. The Indian Ocean is not background here. It is part of the island's emotional shape. Morning light on the beach, boats pulling away from shore, blue water turning silver under sun. Evening settling over the bay. Mirissa turns all of that into a final gentle argument for the country's complexity. This island can be sacred, wild, historical, and still know how to end in light. And that makes Mirissa the right place to close the journey through place. After everything Sri Lanka has revealed inland along the rails in the jungle and behind stone walls, the coastline returns not as conflict, but as openness. The island does not end by becoming smaller. It ends by becoming wider.